Good evening and welcome to the African Diaspora News Channel. I'm Whitney McCoy. Today we're going to be talking once again about Venezuela and the US. As the US has been expanding its military presence in Venezuela for a few months now. Now they've tightened visa restrictions on select Caribbean nations and are raising division within CARICOM. What was once framed as a counter-drug operation is now raising serious questions about sovereignty, regional unity, and of course the future of the US and Caribbean relations. Let's get into it. The Trump administration has increased the deployment of US warships in the Southern Caribbean and Eastern Pacific as part of an expanded military campaign targeting alleged drug trafficking routes connected to Venezuela. Washington says the campaign has resulted in the deaths of at least 104 individuals it claims were drug traffickers. However, the legality and humanitarian consequences of these strikes have been questioned, including by US lawmakers themselves. The military escalation comes amid President Donald Trump's continued pressure campaign against Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, placing Caribbean nations directly in geopolitical crossfire. One prime minister who's at the helm of this is Trinidad's prime minister. One of the strongest regional supporters of the US campaign has been Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Speaking in Port of Spain, Persad-Bissessar accused fellow Caribbean leaders of provoking US retaliation by publicly criticizing American military actions. She warned Trinidadians to behave, suggesting that visa restrictions imposed by Washington were a direct consequence of Caribbean leaders badmouthing the United States.
They've cut their visas. Which Trini wants to cut their visas, so behave yourself. Understand where our help comes from. Understand who could protect and defend Trinidad and Tobago. Right now, there's only one country in the world can do it. They have the money, they have the equipment, they have the assets. And Trinidad and Tobago first. I thought I would share that with you, but it goes further. Over 250,000 Trinis live in the United States. You understand? 250,000 Trinis regularized across there live there. And right here in Trinidad, apart from the 350,000 holding US visas, you have about 20,000 Trinis who are dual citizens, meaning US and Trinidad and Tobago. So what's the problem? So it's all well and good to take the people visa and go to Florida and shop and go wherever and shop. Huh? So just leave the people alone. Leave them alone. Because I don't want a single Trini or Tobagonian to lose their US visa. If it happens, it won't be because of me. We remain in partnership with the United States of America. So let's live with that. And let's continue to prosper together. So if anybody comes to attack Trinidad and Tobago, whom you think will stand up to defend us?
She specifically pointed to Antigua and Barbuda and Dominica, saying their citizens are now facing restricted US visas. More than 250,000 Trinidadians and Tobagans live in the United States and over 300,000 hold US visas, underscoring what she describes as stakes for her country. Those remarks drew an immediate and public response from Gaston Brown. In a Facebook post, Brown rejected the accusation outright and challenged Persad-Bissessar to provide factual evidence that Antigua's criticism of US policy triggered the visa restrictions.
Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar says Port of Spain will pursue a significant realignment of its foreign policy and will seek to increase cooperation in trade, investment, and security with new partners around the world. Mark the words of what she said there. She said that they will have a significant realignment of Trinidad and Tobago's foreign policy in the areas of what? Investment, trade, investment really, security, note the word security, with new partners around the world. All right. Remember, I started off by saying maybe they will join NATO, maybe they'll join the EU, or even become the 51st state of the United States of America. What else did Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister said? It's the latest in a buildup of tensions in the region aimed at increasing military action by the United States in the Caribbean Sea. Remember, a lot of countries in this region says, "Look, we want a zone of peace," and Kamla says that is a figment of our imagination. She backs the U.S. and their war of aggression in the Caribbean, turning our region into a militarized zone. And clearly, we don't like that. And so now there's this tension between Trinidad, Tobago, and CARICOM. Very soon, I predict Trinidad will exit CARICOM.
Both Antigua and Trinidad are members of the Caribbean community, better known as CARICOM, a bloc now visibly divided. What Persad-Bissessar is saying is that the US is one of the Caribbean's strongest allies. And last week, the Trump administration placed Antigua and Barbuda and Dominica under a restricted travel ban, citing concerns about their citizenship by investment programs, sometimes referred to as golden passport schemes. US officials argue that limited residency requirements makes it harder to properly vet individuals who obtain second citizenship through investments. Both governments push back, noting that reforms had already implemented initially, leaders claiming they had been removed from a list of restricted countries. But a US State Department spokesperson later confirmed that both nations remain on the visa restriction list effective January 1st. CARICOM leaders have formally requested clarification from Washington, expressing concern that the decision was made without prior consultation and warning of negative impacts on travel, trade, and people-to-people exchange. However, Persad-Bissessar publicly distanced Trinidad and Tobago from that position, declaring that her country is not a party to the statement and recognizing that she called the sovereign right of the United States to act in its own interests. She later went further, accusing CARICOM itself of dysfunction, internal division, and political interference. As tensions rise, Trinidad's government has confirmed it will allow US military access to its airports and that the United States will install a radar system in Tobago. Persad-Bissessar said the radar is meant to combat drug smuggling and urged citizens not to worry about Venezuela, which lies just 7 miles away. She framed the decision bluntly. According to the Prime Minister, only one country in the world currently has the money, equipment, and military capacity to protect Trinidad and Tobago, and that country is the United States. Her message was clear: Trinidad and Tobago first. Other Caribbean leaders, including Prime Minister Brown, have warned that increased militarization risks unintended consequences and threatens the region's long-standing position as a zone of peace. At the heart of this dispute is a deeper question: whether Caribbean nations can maintain sovereignty and unity while navigating growing pressure from global powers, or will they cower? As the new year approaches, visa restrictions take effect, military deployments expand, and diplomatic divisions deepen. The Caribbean finds itself inside a pivotal crossroads. Will the region stand together or fracture under external pressure? We'll continue to follow this story closely. For the African Diaspora News Channel, I'm Whitney McCoy. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected.